What if the universe is sending you signs that are impossible to ignore? Random coincidences appear even when you are not looking for them. You may notice an unusual silence or a message that almost arrived but never did. A certain presence seems to appear at the exact moment you decide to move ahead. There's a moment in every deep connection when nothing appears different on the outside, yet internally everything has changed. You have probably felt a sense of restlessness for days, maybe even weeks. This feeling is not exactly fear, but a quiet form of certainty. It can seem as if the air around you has become heavier. Memories, emotions, or the sudden awareness of someone who is not physically present may arise without warning. Take a moment to breathe and pay attention to what your heart has been telling you for a long time. Even if your mind tries to dismiss it, what you are sensing is not imagination or coincidence. What you feel is genuine. That subtle pressure in your chest and the new vibration within you are not simply wishful thinking or a desperate hope that things might change. They suggest that the invisible bond between two souls has grown stronger. Today, I want to talk about the person who once held back, but now feels something they can no longer hide, even from themselves. They are beginning to experience a real fear of losing you. This is not the possessive fear of wanting to control someone. It is something deeper and more instinctive. When a person who carries your energy within their soul feels they might truly lose you, something awakens inside them. It can feel sudden, uncomfortable, and completely unexpected. For a long time, this person may have lived with the confident belief that you would always remain there, waiting and keeping the light on while they decided whether it was safe to move closer. But energy never stays the same. The moment you changed and your energy stopped waiting, it sent a shock to the connection that reached the center of their world. It does not matter how much they tried to hide their feelings, how much pride they built, or how many logical explanations they used to avoid facing the truth. There comes a moment on this path when the soul no longer listens to the mind. In that moment, the soul hears the emptiness and faces the real and frightening possibility that you may not be part of their future. That is exactly what is happening now. As you listen to this, you do not need a missed call or a long message to know it is real. You sense it because soul connections do not follow schedules or logical patterns. They move through vibration. When the other person's soul feels it might lose its energetic home, it begins to respond. What you will learn today will help you understand why this shift is happening now and why it affects you so deeply. We often assume that silence means the end, or that distance means forgetting. But in the realm of energy, silence is often where the greatest changes take place. The person who once appeared distant, cold, or uncertain is now entering a period where they must confront the truth. Their usual distractions are no longer effective. Ignoring their own emotions no longer works. Something within them is pushing toward an unexpected step forward. This reaction does not come from their conscious decision, but from a deeper need to restore the balance that shifted when you step back. To understand why their fear of losing you has become so powerful, and why it may lead to something surprising, we must first recognize what you have done. Perhaps without realizing it, you change the rules of the connection permanently. If you are ready to accept this truth in your life, write in the comments, "I'm taking my power back." You are changing as well, and that is an essential part of this story. For a long time, your energy was probably directed outward, constantly moving toward this person. It was the energy of waiting, doubting, and repeatedly questioning. Maybe you spent many nights wondering whether they felt anything for you, whether they remembered you, or whether you truly mattered to them. This vibration, which once came from love, was often experienced by the other person as a form of demand or pressure. In many cases, that pressure actually gave them enough comfort to remain where they were. As long as you carried the weight of the connection alone, the other person did not have to carry anything themselves. But something changed. You began to choose yourself more often. Perhaps this happened naturally, without a clear decision. You slowly started to draw your energy back, not as a way to punish them, but as an act of self-respect and self-love. The moment you return your attention to yourself, the vibration shifts completely. This process can be understood as the physics of emptiness. In spiritual connections, both nature and the human soul tend to resist empty spaces. When you stop chasing and no longer act from a place of need, a gap appears in a relationship. Previously, that space was filled with your persistence and continuous attention. Now there is silence. However, this is not an empty or meaningless silence. It is an inner absence. Understanding this difference is very important. Physical absence simply means not seeing each other. Inner absence occurs when you stop seeking their validation. It is the moment when you release emotional dependence and begin focusing on your own center. This inner absence is what affects the other person now. In the past, you gave them complete certainty that you would always be available. When that certainty disappears, the shift becomes impossible to ignore. Imagine two people holding a tight rope between them. If you're always pulling, the other person only needs to resist the tension. They do not have to make any real effort to hold the connection. But the moment you release the rope to take care of your own hands, the other person suddenly loses balance. They begin to stumble and feel the missing support. That absence becomes a mirror reflecting their own truth. Without your constant energy supporting their sense of comfort, they are forced to generate their own emotional strength and face their loneliness. As a result, they begin asking themselves why the world suddenly feels colder. They sense that your heart is no longer offering itself in the same way as before, and that realization affects them more deeply than any physical distance ever could. Emotional absence is far stronger than simple silence. A person may eventually become used to you not sending messages, but they cannot easily accept losing their special place within your inner world. At this stage, the law of balance begins to operate. By withdrawing your attention, you stop applying pressure. And when the pressure stops, the other person no longer feels the need to run. There is nothing left for them to resist. Once the wall disappears, they are confronted with their own emotions. It is almost as if life signals that the time has arrived for what truly belongs to you to begin moving. This movement often starts from discomfort. The space you left behind now requires something to fill it. Since you are no longer willing to occupy that space with small or one-sided efforts, the responsibility shifts to the other person. That is why you may feel this growing restlessness. You can sense their energies searching for you. Even if they remain silent, they are unsettled internally. They begin noticing things they once ignored and reflecting on what they previously took for granted. Your decision to step back did not break the connection. Instead, it removed the surrounding noise and left this person alone with a truth they avoided for a long time. That truth works like a mirror, revealing aspects of themselves they prefer to keep hidden. To understand why this person is reacting now, we must look at the shadow reflected in that mirror. Every individual carries a shadow, an invisible space where we store the qualities we do not want to acknowledge. This is where fears, doubts, and insecurities are often placed. When this person withdrew or appeared distant, they were not truly responding to you. In many ways, they were reacting to their own shadow. The fear of losing you is now surfacing and revealing something that has always existed but remained hidden behind unresolved wounds. As long as you were pursuing the connection, you unknowingly gave them a place to project their fears. If they were afraid of closeness, they could convince themselves that you were simply too intense. Their mind used your presence as a way to justify their avoidance. Now that you have stepped back, that projection screen has disappeared. The space they once used to observe their internal story is gone. Now they sit alone in that theater, facing the experience directly. They are confronted with parts of themselves they never wanted to acknowledge. This process can be very intense. There is also an interesting idea that explains why the feeling of losing you affects them so strongly. Deep within their mind, you represent an image connected to their own soul. Often, people search outside themselves for what they feel is missing internally. Your energy and your way of loving reflect a part of them that they have kept hidden. Perhaps you represent the vulnerability they rarely allow themselves to show. That is why when you step away, they do not only feel the loss of a partner. Instead, it can feel as though a part of their own identity is being removed. The fear of losing you becomes a form of awakening. They begin to understand that you are not easily replaceable. They realize that what they experience with you may not be repeated with anyone else. This realization carries weight because it reveals what truly matters. Their shadow, which once encouraged them to run away, now begins to show that the real sense of safety existed in the connection they once ignored. They start to see that the problem was not a lack of love, but an inability to manage the depth of what they felt. This inner conflict becomes a struggle between their ego, which seeks control, and their deeper self, which recognizes a sense of home in you. When someone lives with fear, they often behave as if they do not care. But when the soul senses the possibility of real loss, that fear gradually loses its power. An important part of them begins revisiting memories and reflecting on words that once seemed unimportant. They replay moments that now appear like meaningful pieces of a larger puzzle. It is almost as if life is revealing what they once failed to appreciate. However, this realization does not bring immediate peace. Instead, it creates tension and emotional conflict. They feel divided. Their old habits encourage distance, while a deeper force pushes them back toward you. This internal split leads to reactions that go far beyond simple sadness. What they are experiencing is a significant personal shift. Even if they hide it behind a calm and normal appearance, certain signs begin to emerge. External silence does not mean internal peace. From the outside, everything may seem unchanged. They might continue working, meeting friends, and appearing stable. Yet beneath the surface, that stability is very fragile. Internally, they are dealing with emotional and mental confusion. This person is gradually realizing that it is impossible to escape something that already exists within them. The restlessness becomes constant and begins to disturb their sense of calm. One of the most noticeable signs of this awakening is a change in sleep patterns. It is very possible that they struggle to sleep or wake up unusually early, often between 3 and 4 in the morning. During these hours, the mind's usual defenses are weaker. When the logical mind rests, the deeper self begins to speak. They may wake with a heavy feeling in their chest and a sense of fear that has no clear explanation. In those quiet early moments, their thoughts often return to you. Distractions no longer work the way they once did. The reality of your absence becomes difficult to ignore. During the day, their thoughts continue to interrupt them. Images of you appear and break their concentration. They might be driving or speaking with someone when your face or a memory suddenly enters their mind. These thoughts are not intentional. They arrive unexpectedly, like memories pushing their way forward. And interestingly, they do not recall the arguments. They remember the warmth and the sense of safety you once gave them. Gradually, their memory begins to reshape the story, leaving behind only the truth of connection you shared. This can be painful because it contrasts sharply with their present reality, where you are no longer there. In today's world, this inner restlessness often appears through digital behavior. Since pride stops them from calling or reaching out directly, they search for comfort by checking on you online. You may sense that this person is quietly following your activity on social media. They rarely leave likes or visible reactions, because doing so would mean admitting that you still matter to them. But they continue to watch. They check your stories and notice when you are online. They may even reread old conversations just to feel your presence again. This behavior is not simple curiosity. It is a need to confirm that you still exist within their emotional world. When they see you doing well or appearing calm, they experience mixed emotions. Part of them feels relieved that you are still there. Another part becomes afraid that you might be happy without them. This quiet observation becomes their way of maintaining a connection without exposing their vulnerability. However, this behavior often deepens a desire for you. Seeing your life from a distance, while being unable to reach you, increases a feeling of emptiness. They search for signs that you might still be waiting. But when they sense your growing independence, their fear becomes stronger. They are forced to face the possibility that their opportunity may be fading. This internal tension becomes so intense that its energy begins to reach you as well. Emotional energy often behaves like water. When it is blocked in one place, it eventually finds another path. Since open communication is limited, these unspoken emotions begin to move through more subtle channels. You are no longer simply observing the situation from a distance. Instead, you may start to feel their awakening within your own emotional state. In deep connections, the boundary between your feelings and theirs can become unclear. There are experiences a mind cannot easily explain, yet the heart often recognizes them immediately. To understand what may be happening to you, Remember that both of you share a connected emotional space. It can be compared to an underground lake that links two separate wells. When one person drops a stone into the water, the ripples eventually reach the other side, no matter how far apart the wells may appear. You might suddenly experience shifts in mood without an obvious reason. At times, you may feel unexpected sadness or an unexplained sense of fear in your stomach. Often these emotions are not entirely yours. You may be sensing the emotional turbulence the other person is experiencing. That sadness can reflect their pain over what they believe they have lost. The fear may come from their worry that it might already be too late. And moments of warmth or love can appear when the defenses begin to soften. This emotional resonance is often the strongest indication that the bond between you is still present. The invisible thread connecting both of you has not been completely broken. Life sometimes reflects this connection through small signs. Their name might appear unexpectedly in different places. You may hear a meaningful song at the exact moment you consider letting go. You might even notice repeating numbers appearing on a clock. These signs suggest that the process is continuing to move forward. Even your dreams can become a place where connection occurs. During the day, the ego usually tries to maintain control, but during sleep, the soul is more open and unrestricted. You may dream about this person in a very vivid way. Sometimes these dreams feel more real than everyday life. Within these dreams, communication often feels natural and easy. There may be conversations, hugs, or even apologies. In many ways, these experiences can feel like meaningful meetings where your souls begin resolving things before they unfold in reality. If you have noticed emotions that do not seem to belong to you, or if you keep seeing meaningful signs around you, you can share it by writing, "I perceive it," in the comments. This simple step can help you strengthen your trust in your own intuition. All of these signals often appear to prepare you. They serve as reminders that the energy within this connection is reaching a critical point. The pressure has reached its highest level. The resistance this person maintained for so long is slowly weakening under the weight of truth. Just before the barrier finally breaks, there is often one last confusing event. It is similar to how the night becomes darkest right before sunrise. Before someone allows themselves to fully accept love, the ego tends to fight its strongest battle. This is a stage where many people lose patience and walk away just as a change is about to happen. You might notice this person creating even more distance or behaving colder than before. They might block communication or act as though they no longer care at all. However, this behavior does not necessarily mean they have forgotten you. In many cases, it represents a final sign that their ego is beginning to lose its hold. Imagine a rubber band being stretched. Before it snaps forward, it must first be pulled back as far as possible. What you may be witnessing now is that final moment of tension. Their ego senses a threat because it recognizes it may be losing control over its own emotions. Their feelings for you have grown strong enough to challenge the control they once relied on. As a result, they respond with one final attempt at defense. They are not truly fighting against you. In reality, they are struggling with themselves. Their cold behavior becomes a desperate effort to convince themselves that they do not need you. Accepting that they need you would also require admitting that they were afraid and perhaps mistaken. At this point, you face an important question. Do you trust what you see externally or what you feel internally? If you begin chasing them again now, you may allow them to return to their previous comfort. But if you remain calm and steady, the pressure within the situation will continue its natural course. Often, the greater the silence on the outside, the louder the conflict on the inside. This person may be living in contradiction. Their emotions pull them toward you, while their mind tells them to keep distance. It becomes an internal struggle. Pretending that you mean nothing requires constant effort. No one can maintain that kind of mask forever. The energy within this connection can be compared to water building behind a wall. A person may try to strengthen the wall with pride, but if the river keeps rising, driven by real emotions and the emptiness left behind, the wall eventually weakens. When that moment arrives, it does not happen quietly. It creates a powerful internal shift that forces them to stop denying the truth. The person who once relied on distance and emotional barriers suddenly finds themselves overwhelmed by feelings they can no longer control. At that point, they begin to understand that maintaining control came at a cost that was too high. The wall breaks because the soul leaves them with no other option. What follows is the movement you've been sensing for some time, a signal or message that feels more genuine than anything before. They return because they realize they can no longer ignore the bond that exists between you. The truth has reached them, and it brings them back with the understanding that you are the place where their soul finally feels able to breathe. Once the wall collapses, the shift from resistance to action begins. This person, who spent so long avoiding connection, now enters a period of deep reflection, where they begin to see the damage created by their own pride. They start to understand that the silence they once used as protection has actually turned into a kind of prison. In this new stage, the fear of losing you becomes a powerful reason to correct what went wrong. Instead of asking themselves whether they should reach out, they begin wondering how they can possibly close the distance they created. This period is extremely vulnerable for them. It is similar to someone stepping into bright light after spending years in darkness. Every memory of you that they tried to ignore now returns with greater clarity. Gradually, they begin to recognize the value of the connection, not as something heavy, but as one of the most meaningful parts of their life. As they move closer to you energetically, you may begin to feel a sudden calm replacing the restlessness you experienced before. This shift happens because the struggle between holding on and pulling away has ended. They are no longer resisting, and the tension within the connection starts to ease. You might also notice that your own urge to check on them or search for signs begins to fade. This does not happen because your feelings have disappeared. Instead, it happens because, on a deeper level, you sense that the searching phase is over. The energy is now moving in a single direction, toward something that can eventually appear in the physical world. During this stage, the person may begin making small and indirect gestures as a way of testing the situation. They might reconnect with an old mutual friend, appear in places they know you often visit, or share something online that seems clearly meant for you to see. In this way, they are looking for a safe path to return without completely damaging their ego, even though their soul has already accepted the truth of the connection. The final step in this process is the direct breakthrough. This happens when a person finally gathers the courage to express what they truly feel. It often occurs when they understand that the pain of your absence is far greater than the fear of being emotionally exposed. When they eventually reach out, the conversation will likely feel different from anything you experienced before. It will not revolve around old excuses or superficial drama. Instead, there will be a noticeable sense of honesty in their words. They may not express everything perfectly, but you will clearly feel the shift in their energy. This moment marks the true beginning of healing within the connection. It creates an opportunity for both of you to build something new, this time on a foundation of truth rather than confusion or emotional avoidance. You have maintained your boundaries and reclaimed your personal power. Now the universe begins to reflect the results of that inner growth within your external reality. This movement toward you is rarely slow. More often, it arrives as a sudden realization that time is limited. When a person reaches the edge of their own resistance, they enter what can be described as a point of no return. They look at their life and begin to recognize that the things they previously chose instead of you, their work, distractions, or the need to remain in control, feel empty. The fear of losing you has now fulfilled its purpose. It has removed the illusions they were holding on to. At this stage, they enter a deep period of preparation. They begin mentally rehearsing what they want to say and searching for the right moment to step back into your life without repeating the mistakes of the past. During this time, the person often experiences a strong sense of regret. This regret does not appear simply as punishment, but as a teacher that helps them clearly see where they went wrong. As they prepare to take action, you may notice that your own energy becomes very calm and quiet. This is often a clear sign that the cycle is coming to completion. You are no longer reaching outward or searching for them because the connection is now being driven by their effort. You might even notice a sense of emotional neutrality developing within you. This is actually one of the strongest positions you can hold. This neutrality does not mean that love has disappeared. Instead, it reflects the absence of need or dependency. When you reach this state, it naturally creates a powerful magnetic effect. The other person senses this change and begins to understand that if they do not act now, the opportunity may disappear permanently. This urgency becomes a final force that breaks the last part of their pride. They realize that you are continuing your life with or without them. The thought of a future where you are completely gone becomes something they cannot easily accept. When the return finally happens, it often appears in a simple and ordinary way. It might begin with a brief greeting or a small question. On the surface, it may seem minor, but underneath that simple moment lies a complete emotional surrender. They are simply checking to see whether the bridge between you still exists. When this moment arrives, it is important to remember that you are the one who established a new direction. You do not need to return to the old patterns of chasing or explaining too much. The shift happened because you chose yourself. And the only way this connection can remain healthy is if you continue to choose yourself. This person is returning to a new version of you, and they must rise to meet that version. The bond is now being rebuilt, but this time the foundation is different. The rules are no longer shaped by fear or distance. Instead, they are guided by mutual respect and balance. As this person prepares to re-enter your life, they are going through a personal transformation. In many ways, they are shedding the identity they carried before. They are beginning to understand that the person they were when they walked away cannot be the same person who returns. This is one reason the waiting period may have felt so long. They first needed to break down their own inner walls before they could begin building a new bridge toward you. At this stage, they look at you with a different level of appreciation and respect. By choosing yourself, you demonstrated a strength that they now find deeply admirable, though it may also feel slightly intimidating to them. They are no longer returning to someone they could easily take for granted. Instead, they are coming back to someone who clearly understands their own value. This shift in balance is what helps ensure that the renewed connection will be built on equality rather than one person carrying the entire emotional weight. During these final moments of distance, the energetic pull between you may begin to feel almost physical. You might notice a sudden warmth in your chest or a quiet feeling of being observed even when you are alone. This is their soul reaching out to yours, searching for a safe place to land. They are looking for a sign that it is safe to be fully honest. While they may still fear rejection, the pain of this distance has grown stronger than the fear of a no. They're approaching a state of complete transparency. All the games, pretenses, and attempts to appear detached have been dissolved by the intensity of their longing. They are ready to show you their authentic self, including the parts that were once too afraid to love fully the first time around. When the breakthrough finally happens, it will feel like a sudden release of pressure. The atmosphere will feel lighter, and the confusion that has shadowed you both for months will vanish almost instantly. This reunion is not simply about two people reconnecting. It marks the emergence of an entirely new dynamic. You have demonstrated how you expect to be treated by how you honored and valued yourself during the silence. As this next chapter unfolds, you will notice that communication becomes deeper and honesty comes more naturally. The fear of loss has been replaced by a genuine appreciation for what nearly slipped away. Both of you have been transformed by this journey. The love that remains is now stronger, more resilient, tempered like steel, and ready to face reality without masks or pretenses. As the connection enters this final stage, they begin to realize that their old ways of living no longer align with who they are becoming. They stand at a doorway, reflecting on time wasted, while also looking forward to the opportunity to be close to you again. This is a quiet, serious moment for them. They are no longer distracted by social noise or the comfort of their ego. Their focus is entirely on the reality of your worth. They now see that in trying to protect themselves from pain, they were actually causing harm by staying away from the one person who truly understood them.